Welcome to This Month in Cyber for November of 2021. This will be our last one for the year, as we don't do one during the holiday season. We appreciate you being faithful and diligent in continuing to come to these webinars. We feel it's a pretty good 30 minutes, right, to kind of catch up on security awareness initiatives, or even just kind of taking a step back from security and kind of hearing what's going on in the streets. This is our 63rd episode, so we're at over 5 years of doing this, and happy to do it on behalf of our customers. We've moved to the new format. If you haven't attended recently, the new format is these 3 buckets, essentially. What's been in the news, what are we kind of learning from the field and our consulting practice, and what are some vulnerabilities that vendors wanted us to know about from this previous month. We feel like that's a pretty good roundabout way to catch all the things that are going on this month. As you can see, we've got a full agenda, so I'm going to keep moving. And more. We always try to tie things back. I don't parallel everything. I guess if there was one takeaway from this, if this is your first time seeing the NIST cybersecurity framework, you cannot protect from everything. There are a lot of exposures that occur in the world, and we are very big about noting when there's a need to detect issues or respond to issues, or in some cases things have happened, right? And you're in a recovery state. In fact, we'll be talking about some of that from a ransomware today. So know that all of these stages are important, and that security encompasses both the protection mechanism, but also detection, response, and recovery. All right, so some stuff that came up in the news. This is a scheme that I wanted you to know about for a couple reasons. We're really at the beginning of this, and so it's something we're going to have to keep watching out for. The scheme here, this is a gentleman, as it turned out, in Nigeria. This is a person, and I'll describe them as the article does. Essentially, it went through some of the schooling that was there. Unfortunately, job opportunities are very rare there in Nigeria. They have 30% unemployment plus. So a regular character, that has some smarts, decided to go into the world of cybercrime, as many in Nigeria do. The average police officer, as an example, will earn $100 a month. The average cybercrime folks will earn much more than that. And in fact, what this gentleman devised, and this was kind of the first of its kind, although the danger is that a lot of his compadres, not necessarily just in the country of Nigeria, but otherwise, have decided this may be a good idea. And so this may be the next wave we're seeing. And effectively, the wave is to convince employees to release ransomware. Okay, so this evades a lot of cybersecurity controls. Effectively, he had phishing emails that were not being answered, and he was ineffective at his phishing campaign against a specific organization and their high-level directors and C-suite. So what he chose to do was create messages similar to this. Equally unsuccessful, but it raised eyebrows both with authorities, both with authorities that kind of looked at this like, oh boy, what happens if people do pay for this? And this could start a new wave. So that's the thought here, is that this, as we kind of look at it, and I'll throw a little more information at you here, but in Nigeria itself, if you look back at 2020, this is the money that country received as an input. About $4.2 billion of money flowed from U.S. to Nigeria with regards to these types of crimes. You can see that business email compromise, which is something we have a service for evaluating and trying to get at the front end of when someone is logging into your Office 365 and you're unaware of it. That is the most prolific and profitable for the folks in Nigeria. But there are other areas. They're always trying to get creative with regards to what they're creating. And so this is something to be mindful of, and it's just kind of interesting to see some of the background on that. Now, the other interesting piece is Nigeria had in June of this year banned the use of indefinite ban on the use of Twitter because it deleted tweets by the Nigerian president. So there was a lot of anger around social media, and generally this person was literally trying to create a new social media platform, and he was trying to raise money for it. So if he raised $1 million, as he said, he's going to basically there'll be a cut in there for you. So the idea of using personnel to launch attacks is not new, but for ransomware attacks, it is a little bit of a new idea. And so there's a lot of concern by the FBI that this may spawn a new wave, if you will, an era. So a good article on that from Krebs just released a week ago. Another article from Krebs, Krebs on security, a great resource if you have not partaken in that. This is another scam that's in the news, and I'm telling you about this. I would say this is going to hit us more on the consumer side than on the, but this is certainly going to impact your employees, and it overarches a idea about MFA and the ability to bypass. So what's happening here? As you can see, someone received a text message. It appears to be a fraud alert from JP Morgan Chase, again with very little graphics that are displayed in text. You really don't get that phishing campaign type of feel. At the same time, it seems relatively innocuous, right? Yes, no, or one to decline. Legitimate email or a legitimate text from a typing perspective, no misspelled words. You may be inclined to reply yes or reply no, presumably no, had you not had any frauds. Anyone who responds yes, no, or even at all will soon receive a phone call from the scammer. After all, they obviously have your phone number. And that scammer will pretend to be from the financial institution's fraud department. The caller number will be spoofed, okay, so it will look like it comes from the victim's bank. It will say Chase Bank when they call. So at this point, someone has replied no, but is getting a call anyway from the fraud department. It says it's Chase, and you're going to be highly, people that are not educated in this space will certainly start to believe that this person is from the fraud department and acting on their best interest. So they quote unquote verify your identity of the customer, okay, before they obviously are going to impact and interact with your account. They're going to want to verify identity. So they're going to ask you for some things. And then furthermore, they're going to ask you to read a passcode that they're going to send to you. Okay, so they're going to send you a passcode. Well, really what that is they're doing a password change for you, and JP Morgan Chase is sending you the passcode. And JP Morgan's passcode, you're going to then read to them, they're going to enter it and change your password. Effectively, at that point, the JP Morgan Chase as an example, and the change password, all they want to know is that you authorize it. And so you're reading the code back and you're effectively authorizing them to change the password. So without knowing your password, they're now logged into JP Morgan Chase because they got to change the password to whatever they want. The gist of it is, do not read these codes to anyone. Now this transfers over, and this is used, by the way, for Zelle. This is called the Zelle money transfer. Zelle is offering their service to a number of credit unions and otherwise pretty highly known name and so forth in the industry. So these types of, and then furthermore, I think Zelle has introduced another step in the chain for actually transferring money, and they stay on the phone with you in this case and help try and convince you that in order to cancel the transaction, you need to reply yes, which actually transfers the money. But long story short is it's really not about Zelle as much as it's about tricking folks to read MFA prompts back. And I guess the lesson to be learned here, and this is true for consumer, as we're kind of seeing here, but I'll transfer it over into business. The MFA that you've employed within your organization that has codes that get generated on your phones for push, or if you happen to be using SMS or phone calls, those can be navigated if the end user is reading the code or providing this code to anyone else. The MFA code is intended for you. And I guess the mantra is hang up, look up, and call back. And that's it's kind of going around the circles now as a overall message to give to your users about if you feel like you're getting it from someone warning about fraud, hang up. Even if the call looks legitimate, look up the number of the organization and call them back. Right? It's very similar to wire transfers and things of that case. So important news there. Two other news and more of updates, if you will, and you'll have to determine if they're applicable to you. Number one is the Gramm-Leach-Bliley Act, which the GLBA, which many financial institutions would know as that guides their security principles, has been updated this past month, or actually in October, and it widens the scope. So it doesn't change the scope for the financial institution itself. Instead, it falls into the supply chain. So anyone that's a mortgage broker, motor vehicle dealers, payday lenders, basically anyone that's a supplier to the financial institution is now under scope for the safeguards rule, which is essentially meant to better protect the data. So if you fall in line with that, or in general, I think it's just kind of interesting to see that compliance laws are generally expanding to include the supply chain. I'll pause there and let's go to the next iteration, CMMC. For those that don't know, CMMC is something we've been chatting about quite often as an organization, trying to get our customer base educated on the idea that CMMC is a standard that is designed to protect the supply chain for the Department of Defense. Okay, there are many manufacturers that provide products to the Department of Defense. Certainly, you can think of your large suppliers, you know, the Raytheons and Northrops of the world. They, in turn, get their parts from downstream suppliers, and they get their parts from downstream suppliers, down to screws, down to maps, down to plans, down to plastic pieces that go inside parts. All of those are part of the supply chain, and CMMC is designed to guard all of them. In general, CMMC got a relatively sizable change just recently here in November, earlier this month. We understand that change. It will be impactful for the manufacturing customers. You can see the CMMC accreditation body rules right here and the link for it if you'd like to read yourself. But in a nutshell, we're registered practitioners for CMMC. Two of the major changes, as an example of what occurred, is that level 2 and 4 of they had 5 levels before, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Levels 2 and 4 are gone. Now we have 1, 3, and 5. The second major change is that level 1 is now self-attestation, meaning you don't need to have a third-party auditor. You're essentially going to go through level 1, self-attest, sign off on the fact that these are what your standards are, and you'll be in a current state. That's very meaningful because we have a level 1 practice area. That was the only level that really we were playing in, is helping customers with level 1 of CMMC. So it falls to our benefit, if you will, to that degree, and mostly to our customers' benefit in that we're able to do that. One of our registered practitioners, Joe Guarini, is going to be speaking on January 18th on a webinar. So I kind of put a save the date there. We'll be putting this up on our website and ask you to be part of the supply chain changes that are occurring here in the industry. So another supply chain. All right, and this one, this is from In the Trenches. So I'm going to move from in the news to in the trenches here and things that we're learning. Last month, I spoke of, to a smaller audience, I spoke of what we're finding in the cybersecurity insurance space. We've seen dozens at this point of cybersecurity insurance forms, and these are the areas that they are asking you questions about. I'm not going to repeat, our discussion from last month. But what I am going to drill in on is this last piece, multi-factor authentication. I thought it'd be wise for me to put on screen multi-factor authentication and what cybersecurity insurance is specifically asking. This is a screen print of the actual ask. In order to get cybersecurity insurance, your answer has to be yes to all of these questions. They will not provide you insurance with a no or an incomplete, not sure answer. Take a look at where MFA is needed. Okay, it's not needed just for people getting email. It's needed for all remote access, VPN, Citrix, or otherwise. And then down in question 3, you'll see internal and remote admin access to all of those areas. I highlight that only to just, essentially, I hate the word, but double click on the idea that MFA is important and rising in importance level on your ability to renew your insurance, cybersecurity insurance, which is your financial offset to your business risk. So that rises to C-level decisions about operational risk and things of that nature. So be mindful of MFA in the cybersecurity insurance world. We're doing 3 times as many MFA deployments as we were doing 3 months ago, and it was 3 times that from 3 months ago. It's going up like a hockey stick and going into areas, and people are having to employ MFA in a lot of mature areas. Ransomware. I thought we'd just have a brief discussion about what the first steps are for ransomware. I think we chat about ransomware each month to a high degree. In October, we helped 2 organizations recover from ransomware. One is in the food industry, has about 500 users. They had all of their systems locked up. And we had another organization that has about 5,000 users. Not our typical organization that we help, but they're professional services. Both were painful. Both had a lot of legal, insurance, forensics, and recovery teams for which we were part of the recovery. Both were organization-wide, meaning most, if not all, of their servers were locked, workstations, and both had costs that exceeded $200,000, not in payments to us, but by estimation, certainly by our recovery efforts, but forensics teams, insurance, and so forth. A lot of this obviously being covered by the insurance outside of their deductibles. In November, we're already working with one organization on ransomware, 70 users, 12 servers. They've been out of commission for about a week. And I guess the resonating theme I want to give to you is on the technology side is the deployment of the technology is now being done after the event as opposed to previous to the event, right? Every one of these organizations is putting in better endpoint detection and response systems in addition to protecting. They want to know about detection and response, so EDR solutions, for which we have solutions in that space. Incident response plans, they're now thinking about detailing out what they would do in the event of a response of an issue. Multi-factor authentication, if they didn't have it in all the instances we just talked about. Their ability to detect problems on their network, they're looking at that. DNS protection, where are people going on the internet? Why was this traffic allowed to be created? A lot of users working from home that aren't going through the firewall where maybe policies had been enforced previously. How do we protect home users in that situation? How do we protect local access on workstations from impacting admin level access potentially to other accounts? So things like technologies like LAPS are very important. So anyways, afterwards, it's always hindsight's always 20/20, and therefore I'm trying to give you a little of that hindsight that these organizations are all employing those solutions now after having an event. Putting these solutions in prior to the event may be a good idea. From our perspective, I thought I'd be very transparent. A lot of organizations that have some relationship with us will just say, we'll call Peters and you guys can help us. Well, we will help and we want to help. We will be very involved. And here's what we're going to ask you. Do we have a support agreement? Do you have an incident response plan? What role do you want us to play? What are the time constraints and money constraints on this issue? All your servers are locked. You're in panic mode. Does that mean you have $50,000, $100,000? Are we rebuilding all the servers? And then furthermore, we might not be able to do a single thing because you might want to preserve evidence, and that's perfectly fine and in fact advised in some cases, because forensics companies are much more suited to that, and we have a company that we partner with to bring in for forensics, so we can do light discovery, but oftentimes that can compromise source material. Insurance, what's your financial loss? Should you pay or not pay the ransomware? This is not an area that we necessarily get involved with. Legal and insurance really guide the show. But all of this being said, those are 10 great areas to think through as part of an incident response plan. And incident response planning, we do and do well with a lot of customers. So just kind of wanted to give you a background and transparency as to what we're going to be asking before we even get started. All right, another in the trenches. Hopefully most of you know, but if you don't, then use this as your first warning that Microsoft is raising prices on their Office 365 on March 1st. That is, they're also what's called changing platforms. I won't get into the details of that. Each of those two changes, the price change and the platform change, will be impactful to your licensing purchases, whether you buy them from us, you buy them from Microsoft, or you on an enterprise agreement, or buy them from somewhere else. You will be impacted by this pricing change. I'm not here to chat about the pricing change nearly as much as what we're finding is a trend that a lot of our customers are purchasing a lot more because of the way that things are structured, and as they look at their agreements, they're buying a lot more technology. They're purchasing, in fact, a lot more security with either the M365 purchase. So they've gone from maybe owning Office 365, the stuff in the red on the left, to owning M365, which is all three columns of Office 365, Enterprise Mobility Suite, and Windows. And with that, you get a lot of technology. And buying a lot of technology and sticking it on the shelf does you no good. So what we've been chartered to do is help our customers unfold a lot of the value areas that are low-hanging fruit in suites like this or in Business Premium. And I guess what I'm here to share with you today is that some of those value areas specifically are single sign-on and kind of tying together applications into Azure Active Directory, and then using multi-factor authentication, which is included in there with conditional access, because oftentimes MFA, the way you currently own it, might be on or off. MFA with conditional access will allow you to have parameters. If you're on the network or via VPN, we won't make you MFA. Or if you're accessing certain applications, we won't make you MFA. Or if you're certain groups of people, it's MFA, we won't make you MFA. Things of that nature. So the conditional access is a nice piece. Azure AD password protection. So this is in the blue area. Keeps users from creating bad passwords. Intune for inventory of your devices. Remember our 5 steps to NIST. First one was inventory. Do you know what you're chartered to manage, right? If you have a bunch of mobile devices out there accessing mail, do you know what iOS versions they're on? Do you know if they're Android? Are they on compromised devices? Are they on compromised networks? Defender for Office 365, right? That's the flow of good mail and making sure there's spam control. And Defender for Identity. So all of the Defender products, for which I believe there are 6 within the M365 suite, we have pilots and proof of concepts for all of them. So just wanted to let you know there's a lot of technology. The value comes with actually having it deployed. 3 areas for vulnerabilities this month. Microsoft had their typical Patch Tuesday. Hopefully your patch management program is unfolding and you've already gotten to some testing. This is end of the month. November 9th was when it was released. So we've had 21 days. Hopefully all of your servers and workstations have already got the patch installation going, or you're unfolding that process. I wanted to call out 2 specific exposures, vulnerabilities that were discussed. One was in Excel, later versions of Excel, ironically, that had some significant weaknesses there with the CVE number. And then the second was Exchange Server, unfortunately had another bad month, bringing to, I think, 8 or 10 different exposures that have occurred this year in Exchange. And then in addition to the 2 that are listed on the screen, there were a couple patches for remote desktop protocol, RDP, which is what people use for built-in remote administration, Windows 7 through Windows 11. The flaws let an attacker view the RDP password for the vulnerable system. So pretty bad bugs, if you will, this month in Microsoft. I'm glad that they're on top of it. We need to be on top of it in terms of deploying that. If you need assistance in this space, I believe we're up to 6,000 systems a month that we're responsible for patching and reporting effective distribution of patches to those systems. VMware also had a vulnerability come out. The severity of this was labeled as important. This is in the vSphere web client. So if you have take advantage of that within your network, it has a score of 7.5 danger out of 10. And it allows a malicious actor with network access, and that's why it's only important and not severe or critical. You have to have network access already, and then you gain access to port 443 on vCenter server, which might gauge you access to other sensitive information. So patch away on the VMware with this vulnerability. And the last was on Citrix. This one was for their NetScaler ADC, or Citrix Gateway as they call it. It is critical at that level, and then there's some other attributes that are less critical, but in general, there's a patch out for Citrix on the domain controller. It just came out 2 or 3 weeks ago. Okay, a couple things to wrap up. Later on this week, on Thursday, we have an event called M365 Hands-On Lab. We're going to be running this event in December, January. Oh, I have events October up top. This should be events November and December, but we're going to run the same event 3 times effectively. December, if you miss it, that's okay. You can catch it in January or February. We're finding that giving you some exposure to all that M365 has is a great idea. This hands-on lab is designed for you to actually touch and feel and implement MFA in a lab environment and a facilitated walkthrough. So we think it's pretty highly interactive and educational, and looking forward to some of our customers attending, as again, you're buying a lot of this technology. We want to make sure that you know how to implement it and kind of where the value areas are. So I'll be on that, and I'll be the facilitator, and we'll have another person that's actually running the lab component. I also want to call out that CMMC, which was referenced earlier in the presentation today. We do have an event on January 18th at 11 a.m. It's going to be called Jumpstart CMMC in 2022. So look for that on our website soon, or it will be in our newsletter later on this week. We've written some recent blogs. We don't write these blogs just to make ourselves feel good. We get 600 hits per day in the blogs area of our website. We try to be thought leaders, I guess, in the spaces that we provide consulting expertise in. You can see some of these are around IT life cycles or SharePoint errors. I also want to call out, we had one of our technical leads, state that this was a really good book. If you're interested in a read, it's a very non-technical read, but kind of a look back from history's perspective in the cybersecurity space as to how we got in the predicament we're in today, where there's a lot of ransomware and things of that nature, and how that impacted both elections previously as well as recent elections, and kind of where we're going. And it, I guess, does so in a very non-technical, great way, and it things about things not known, things forgotten, and wraps up with previous elections. So good stuff and good reads if you're interested in that. Last, I just wanted to make a quick mention that I was lucky enough or fortunate enough to apply for and get into a organization called the FBI Infragard. So we as a organization have a conduit into the FBI and the Department of Homeland Security's information that they publish out to the Infragard members, which is going to be another conduit that kind of fuels this month in cyber, as well as it's bidirectional. Obviously, not only information coming to us, but if we hear of things, we have a direct line in through Infragard to provide information back to the FBI and Department of Homeland Security. So with that, I will conclude. I certainly appreciate everyone attending and look forward to seeing you in our January this month in cyber, if not on one of our other events that I had highlighted. Nora, are there any questions or can we just wrap it?
There are no questions.
Okay. Well, thank you all very much for attending and we'll see you in January.